Hare Krishna. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. We're on text 8, so 3.8.8. It's August 22nd, 2025. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 8. Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukya Vivakshamana Bhagavata Vibhuti Jagada Sa Asmat Gurave Anvitaya Parasharaya Ata Brihaspatecha Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukyo Vivakshamam No Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagada Sosmad Gurave Vitaya Parasaraya Tabrihaspatecha Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukyo Vivakshamano Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagada Sosmad Guravain Vitaya Parasharaya Tabrihaspatecha Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukyo Vivakshamano Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagada Sosmad Guravain Vitaya Sharaya Tabrihaspatecha Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukyo Vivakshamano Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagada Sosmad Guravain Vitaya Parasharaya Tabrihaspatecha Sankyayana Paramahamsya Mukyo Vivakshamano Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagada Sosmad Guravain Vitaya Tabrihaspatecha And then, yeah, go.
Sankhayana Paramahamsya Mukhyo.
Sankhayana Paramahamsya Mukhyo.
Vivakshamano Bhagavat Vibhuti.
Vivakshamano Bhagavad Vibhuti.
Jagadasasmat Guraven Vitaya.
Yadasosmat Guraven Vitaya.
Parasharayata Brihaspatischa.
Sarasarayata Prihaspatescha. Sankhayana. The great sage Sankhayana. Paramahamsya Mukhya. The chief of all transcendentalists. Vivakshamana. While reciting Bhagavat Vibhuti, the glories of the Lord. Jagada explained Sa he Asmat of me Gurave unto the spiritual master Anvitaya followed Parasharaya unto the sage Parashara Atabrihaspatecha also to Brihaspati. Translation. The great sage Sankhayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parashara and Brihaspati both heard him. There's no purport, and we'll read text 9. Ovachamayam sadayalor ukto muni pulastena puranam madhyam soham tavaitat katayami vatsa shradhalave nityamanu vertaya. Translation. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The great sage of the name Pulastya is the father of all demoniac descendants. Once upon a time, Parashara began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. The great sage Vasishta Muni arrived at the sacrifice and requested Parashara to stop the deadly action, and because of Vasishta's position and respect in the community of sages, Parashara could not deny the request. Parashara, having stopped the sacrifice, Pulastya, the father of the demons, appreciated his Brahminical temperament and gave the blessing that in the future he would be a great speaker on the Vedic literatures called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parashara's action was appreciated by Pulastya because Parashara had forgiven the demons out of his Brahminical power of forgiveness. Parashara was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why on that account should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? As the great speaker of the Puranas, Parashara first of all spoke on the Srimad Bhagavat Purana because it is the foremost of all the Puranas. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he had heard from Parashara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from superiors. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasadeva. The so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial, before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. Hare Krishna. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganagnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam's Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatu Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanat Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Guavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 8 Text 8 and 9. It's August 22nd, 2025. Text 8. The great sage Sankhya was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parashara and Brihaspati both heard him. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Palastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we have the Bhagavatam here. Well, it's spoken by Maitreya. These verses are spoken by Maitreya Muni to Vidura in response to Vidura's questions. The previous chapter is entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. And Maitreya Muni is describing, of course, Maitreya Muni heard from Krishna, who was speaking to Uddhava, and Maitreya Muni was kind of in the area. And now Maitreya Muni is describing, he also heard from his spiritual master, Parashara, this Bhagavatam. Okay. Now, in the Bhagavatam, there's lots in the Bhagavatam that describes about the whole history of the Bhagavatam. This is one of those sets of verses. And there's many verses in Bhagavatam that glorify Bhagavatam. Krishna Svadamo Bhagate Dharma Gyana Dibise Saha Kalanasham Drishamesha Puranako Dunoni Dita. That upon the disappearance of Lord Krishna, about 5,000 years ago, the Bhagavatam, it's the light of the Bhagavatam. It's more brilliant than the sun. And the Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of Krishna to continue Krishna consciousness in this age. And so, for example, in the whole, in the first canto of Bhagavatam, chapters 4 to 7, there's the whole story of how Narada Muni instructed his disciple Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva had compiled all the Vedas, revealed all the Vedas, and was still despondent. And then Narada Muni said, yeah, you're despondent because you're giving Yadvayasam Tirtam. This literature is like a pilgrimage place for crows. Crows go where there's blood and garbage and like that, as opposed to the Bhagavatam, which is for the swan-like humans. Swans, they're very graceful, and they can be a mixture of water and milk, and they can pick out the milk, and the swans are in these very sattvic places, as opposed to crows. Okay, some bird analogies there. So, and we hear so much about how the Bhagavatam is given by Vyasadeva. And so, is this a contradiction here? It's given by Sankhya. And yes, to Parashara. and then Parashara gave it to Maitreya Muni. Okay, yes, because so that's the thing. Like when so like this is a book. Srila Prabhupada published the Bhagavatam in 30 volumes, and then Krishna book is the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. There's three 2 in 1 volume editions. At the same time, it's like this Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita or Bhagavad Gita. It's not a book in the ordinary sense that we think of. Yeah, there's an author that wrote a book and then went to the printer and like had a publisher. So that's why this is transpersonal authorship. So we can say, just to communicate in ordinary language, we might say, oh yeah, Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam, but he revealed the Bhagavatam, and that's described here. That yes, so Prabhupada describes it in language somewhere certainly better than I can do. But so the Bhagavatam is eternal. It's eternal. It's there eternally in the ether. It's there eternally in the ether. And then Srila Vyasadeva, out of compassion for the residents of Kali Yuga, like us, he revealed it in written form. And I think everyone here is familiar with the Shrutidhar principle. In previous ages, practically everyone was a Shrutidhar. Hear something once, remember it for the rest of your life. If we look at archaeology beyond about 5,000 years ago, there's no evidence of writing. So that's the evidence, facts. Okay, then there's interpretation of the facts. So the cavemen were too stupid to write, but then they evolved. Okay, let's take the same facts and analyze it, understand those same facts through the lenses of the Vedas. We see that everyone was so sharp in their memory that they heard something once and they remembered it for the rest of their life, and then not in an evolutionary way, but in a de-evolutionary way. In our Bhagavad Gita correspondence, Anandini and I, and also our Chaitanya Charitamrita group have some correspondence around different music. So certainly we play some music from a band from the 70s called Devo, and the meaning of their name is de-evolution. That's the meaning of their name. Very philosophical lyrics. One of their lyrics, we state boldly, it's the essence of all the Safata, of course, is completely aligned with Bhagavad Gita. Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. It gets the essence of all grunges, the main payoff, avoiding responsibility. Okay, so de-evolution. So that's the Vedic version, right? So then at some point, some point in history, not that people became so smart, they learned how to write. People became so stupid, they needed to write. They needed to write. So we have these crude instruments like a crayon or a keyboard or things like that in the time of Vyasadeva and Parasara. Hear something like that. So different perspective, same evidence, different perspective, yeah. And so okay, so the Bhagavatam is revealed and written down by Vyasadeva because he knew we're not going to be Shrutidhars in this age. And Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagi Bhuchapu Padrata. That in this age people are slow and they're not spiritually inclined, quarrel over petty trifles, quarrel over nothing. Maybe none of us here have that experience, but we need to trust the Bhagavatam that in this age, people just have interpersonal conflict and international wars over nothing. Okay, just piles and piles of layers, multi-layers of petty nothing. So Vyasadeva is like, they need the Bhagavatam. Yes, so negative. So then Srila Vyasadeva is giving us so positive. He's giving us the Bhagavatam, and of course it's described at the at every volume of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada has his preface, and he quotes a verse there. Advad Visargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishwaka Yabadavat Yapi Namanyanantasya Yashon Kintanya Srinvatika Antigrinanti Sadava. And well, since it's written there in every volume, I'll just give a summary of the translation, but the exact translation is at the end of the preface. On the other hand meaning as opposed to that literature that's meant for the crows, that literature, meaning the Bhagavatam, this is Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, that literature which is full with descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a transcendental creation meant to bring about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though irregularly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Prabhupada, he's invoking the mercy of Sri Narada Muni and Srila Vyasadeva that the Bhagavatam given by Srila Prabhupada is going to be effective. And so the term revolution is described here. So from 5,000 years ago, Narada Muni is saying the Bhagavatam is destined to create a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. So if we look over history, over the centuries and millennia, we certainly, like, maybe in some corners of what's now called India, which is also called Bharatvarsh in Vedic language, certainly the Bhagavatam was appreciated by saints and sages and Vaishnavas, but we don't see a planetary revolution until Srila Prabhupada came on the Jaladuta with nothing materially, and he did have a crate of about, I think, 200 sets of the 3 volumes of the first canto he printed in India. And because of that, a revolution in consciousness has happened. Otherwise, here we are in Europe and Florida discussing Bhagavatam. Our parents weren't doing that, right? They never heard of Bhagavatam. And so we can permissibly conjecture that this verse from thousands of years ago from Narada Muni predicts Srila Prabhupada bringing Bhagavatam into English and Western language. And the word there, irregularly composed, especially if we look at those three volumes of the first canto that Srila Prabhupada brought with him on the Jaladuta. I don't know if you've ever read those volumes, but like, there's no editing. You can imagine like one finger typing, and there's all sorts of so-called mistakes. And so this verse from Narada Muni says, like, even if it's got all sorts of so-called mistakes, because it's the Bhagavatam purely coming through a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, it's going to create a revolution. And these are wonderful volumes. And you can see, the punctuation isn't always where it should be according to strict English standards and things like that. There was no editing or proofreading in those days, and there was printing mistakes. So even if irregularly composed. All right. So now, okay. So we read 2 verses because the first verse didn't have a purport. So typically I'll read the verses till we come to a purport. Don't have to follow that standard. That's typically what I do. Then we read the verse, and it describes that parampara from Sankhya-yana, Parashara, Maitreya Muni, Brihaspati. And then the purport goes into some really far out pastimes of cannibalism and Rakshasa and like that. The great sage of the name Pulasti is the father of all demoniac descendants. Once upon a time, Parashara began a sacrifice. Parashara is also the father of Vedavyas, Vyasadeva. He began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. So Parashara's father was eaten by one of the demons. So it gets into far out pastimes here. And we see, interestingly here, let's see, Parashara was able to demolish all the demons. He was capable to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why on that account should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? So his father was like viciously destroyed and eaten, cannibalized. Okay. So he's like, I'm going to destroy this whole race. And then he goes into, well, the world stands in no need of any reformer. Everything's complete and perfect. The demons, they did what demons do, and they destroy creatures and eat them, and they're man-eaters, they're rakshasas. So he shifted his consciousness. That's what demons are so made, that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why on that account should I was? So let me forgive. So he had a real transformation there. Okay. So now as far as this whole thing about like, let's understand about demons. Okay, we hear this term a lot, and then it's, kind of like, oh, Prabhupada uses this word demon. This sounds very like religious fundamentalism or primitive and labeling and categorizing. So of course, Prabhupada's using such terminology in the Vedic sense. So, for example, in a sense, demons, yeah, demons, it's really like a family name, the name of a dynasty, because we can think of these are the evil creatures. Now, it's not that there's not truth to that, but I want to unpack this a bit. Okay. Essentially, it's like a family name. Okay. Like Wolf or Smith or Bonomo or Bernstein or yes, or like that. It's a family name. Oh yes, I'm of the family Johnson. I'm of the family Schmidt. Okay, like that. It's like there's the demons and the devas. Okay, and so, and we hear a lot about the wars between the demons and the devas, demigods. And so, generally speaking, the family of the demons. Now, they're in many ways they follow Vedas, like this Palastya. He's the father of Ravana, who was the great demon who kidnapped Mother Sita. He is also Rakshasa, man-eater, and similarly with uh, Hiranyakashipu. I know here in Gainesville, there's at the movie theaters, there's a movie with Nrsimhadev and Hiranyakashipu. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure it'll be on, the internet soon, but it's in the Gainesville theaters now. A big popular movie from what I understand, and Indian film producer. And the story I heard from Nitya Gopal Prabhu is that he was like really frustrated with the whole film industry. And then Prabhupada appeared in his dreams. Prabhupada appeared to him, no, you should make this movie about the Das avatar, starting with Nrsimhadev. So when I heard from Nitya Gopal, the story is he's going to come out with, and these are running in the theaters in New York, Los Angeles, Gainesville, probably Europe. He's going to come out with movies on the other Das avatars. It's Vamanadev, Varahadev, Zurich, Jai. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. And Zurich also. And so, yeah. So Hiranyakashipu also, like he had a lot of Vedic knowledge. If we read Bhagavatam, parts of the seventh canto, parts of it are very astute philosophical expositions by Hiranyakashipu to his family after their brother died. But he's the big demon who tortured his son and tried to kill his devotee son. So that's true. And life is complex and relationships are complex. Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, they had lots of knowledge, lots of knowledge. But just they will tend strongly to be very impious, tend strongly not to devote themselves to Vishnu, but they'll use Vedas and the philosophy for materialistic goals. Yeah, there's when it's described in the Bhagavatam, when Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha died at the hands of Varahadev, that's the boar incarnation, then the family was distraught and grief-stricken, and Hiranyakashipu came and he gave very nice Bhagavatam class on like, well, we're not this body, no need to get, like, sounds like Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So, but the demons, their tendency is to not engage in bhakti and to live for their own sense gratification, and like that. And whereas the demigod propensity, even though the demigods tend not to be pure devotees, when the demigods are under a lot of threat by the demons, then they sort of briefly become pure devotees. Like, oh, Krishna, we're so full, we were just going for material sense gratification, but let us serve you, oh, Vishnu. And then when like things are nice again, then they kind of become mixed devotees. Like, there's some devotion there, la-di-da, it's so nice in heaven. And that's some basic psychology of demigods and demons. But so at the same time, and this is a core principle of bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, Bhagavatam, whatever families one's born into, one can choose bhakti at any minute, at any moment, and for every moment. So for example, it's described Saivambur Naradas Shambhu Prado Palado Kumaro Kapilo Vidu Pralado Bhishmo Janaka Bali Vaya Sakir Vaya. There's 12 Vedic, there's 12 particular authorities on devotional life from the Vedic age. And at least two of them that immediately, there's 12, Rama, Shiva, Janaka, the father of Sita, Yamaraj, Shukadev Goswami, and at least two of the 12 are demons. Prahlad Maharaj and his grandson Bali Maharaj. So they're in the family of demons. Prahlad Maharaj, he's this great devotee, like he's of the 12 Mahajans, those 12 great authorities. Prahlad's the topmost. I'll just mention in some lines that are in some lines of bhakti, not Prabhupada, not our line, we'll hear that Prahlad's devotion was mixed with jnana and things like that. So that definitely is not authorized in the line of Srila Prabhupada. So Prahlad's a demon. It just means like his family name is Smith or Jones or Schlitz or something like that. Okay. So it just means he was born in that family. Same with Bali Maharaj. He's the grandson of Prahlad. That's so, it gets into nature and nurture, or nature, it's the DNA, our ancestry, the family we're born into, the nurture, how we were educated. And Prahlad was educated in the demon school. It was all about like Machiavellian politics and economics and how to manipulate and crush the enemy. And so he was there. And then at recess, Prahlad would give Bhagavatam class. And his teachers would get like, where'd you get this stuff? Where'd you get this stuff? And then Hiranyakashipu became angry at the teachers, like, what are you teaching him? He's teaching about hearing and chanting about Vishnu, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyamatma, Nivedanam. That's Prahlad Maharaj. He was asked by his father, what's the best thing you learned in school today? Oh, the best thing I learned in school is to like have kirtan about Vishnu and study Bhagavatam and offer arti and to serve the lotus feet of Vishnu. So again, Vishnu is the murderer from Hiranyakashipu's point of view. He's the murderer of Hiranyakashipu's brother, and Hiranyaksha. And so Hiranyakashi's like, who taught you this stuff? And then so he blamed the teachers at some point. At some point, Hiranyakashipu realized, you're not getting this from the teachers. You're just one of these vile, you're just vile, terrible devotees. And you need to be destroyed, even though he was his son. And that's the demoniac mentality. So, of course, Prahlad's an eternal, pure devotee, but Prahlad heard of Bhagavatam from Narada Muni when he was in the womb. But we can talk about, it's like, oh, you're too young, you're too old, you're from this family, you're from this family. So this can be both good news or bad news, depending on how we relate to it. Because as far as like, yeah, as far as like, yeah, there's no excuses. It takes away all the excuses about, well, here's why I'm not enthusiastically embracing bhakti. Look at the family I came from. Or it's not just the family I came from. Look what I did yesterday. Or look at these thoughts I'm plagued by. Or I'm such a wretch. I need to purify myself before I chant Hare Krishna or read Bhagavatam. So that's all thrown out. So even though there is like the demons, and they tend to be these Rakshasa man-eaters with terrible, arrogant, angry, ignorant, obstinate, obnoxious qualities. But then, okay, Bali Maharaj, Vibhisan, right? So Lord Ramachandra, with the support of his monkey warriors headed by Hanuman and Sugriva. Now let's take a look at that. Okay, so they weren't from these like great devotional, pious, sattvic, brahminical qualities. They're in the dynasty of monkeys, and they're celebrated as great devotees. Hanuman, great devotees. Okay, so then they smashed Ravana and like that, and then Vibhishan is one of the brothers of Ravana, and Ram and Lakshman were delighted to install Vibhishan on the throne, even though he's from the Rakshasa demon family. But there he is, and he's a pure devotee of Ramachandra. So, yeah. So whatever our nature, our nurture, whatever our past, from our ancestry, going back generations, from this lifetime a few decades ago, whatever we did, or from yesterday or earlier today, it's the same principle. That whatever that bhakti is transcendental. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti red hokshaje ahetukya pratyata yayatma suprasidati. That the supreme dharma for all human beings is whatever is that which provokes and inspires loving attraction. Savai pumsam pro dharmo, the supreme dharma. Yato bhakti at hokshaje, the attraction to hear and chant about, serve at hokshaje, that's a name for Krishna, the transcendent Lord. Such service when we're sincere, when we're intentional. This is a standard clear intention verse, a quintessential clear intention verse. When we're intentional, nothing material can get in the way. Not what happened a few hours ago, or my DNA, or how I was brought up. And so we get to choose bhakti at every moment in whatever form. Prahlad Maharaj delineates 9 forms, but the simplest form, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We choose bhakti, Bhagavatam verse here from Prabhupada. Do some service, offer a flower on the altar, distribute a Bhagavad Gita. Then we're on the transcendental platform. Then we're on the whatever the past may be. whatever the past may be. In traditional Vedic society, there's what's called the Vaidhi Vidi, Vaidhi marg. It's the traditional Vedic path, and like one will gradually purify themselves through the different varnas and ashrams and through karma yoga and different ritualistic practices, and gradually purify till one comes to the Brahman platform, and then realizing the oneness aspect of the absolute, and gradually going to yoga and super soul realization, and then gradually going to pure devotion to Krishna. So that Vaidika Vidi, that's not relevant or practical for this current age. Even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, so this is going back to the 1920s, 1930s, even before the 20s. Bhakti Siddhanta, even he would have those born from families of Brahmins, like there's demon families and there's Brahmin families and there's Vaishya. Srila Prabhupada appeared in a Vaishya family, and dating back, well, dating back to some of these ancient sages described here. Okay, so even those born in Brahminical families, Bhaktisiddhanta would initiate them according to the Pancharatrika Vidi, not the Vaidika Vidi. Now the Panchrik, that comes from Narada Muni. And Narada Muni, he's showing up all over the Bhagavatam. So we refer to him in this class. Narada Muni, it's called the Narada Pancharatra, and the basic principle of the Pancharatriki path, marg or vidi, is that, okay, whatever your family, whatever your history, your DNA, whatever whatever terrible sinful activities you've done or thought about doing or whatever, just looking for that spark of sincerity and fanning that spark through hearing and chanting. And that's the Bhagavatam. Fanning that spark. Yeah, but I came from this kind of family, like whatever. A classic story of Pancharatriki Vidi, Narada Muni, the story of the hunter, the hunter, and it's so poignant. So Narada Muni's walking the forest. He sees animals suffering in agony because the hunter's he's not killing the animals to eat them or get their fur for clothes or sell them for business, but he's half killing them to maximize their suffering. So again, like, this is not like a cultured gentleman. Okay, this isn't a cultured gentleman. Okay, and so the Narada Muni sees the hunter, and the hunters, and Narada Muni's like, "What are you doing?" And the hunter's like, "Well, what's the problem? What's the problem?" And Narada's, "Well, if you're going to kill the animals, just kill them. You've all heard me describe, like in the Bible, in the Noahide commandments before the 10 commandments. The Noahide commandments are commandments for everyone, the whole population, not just Jews. Anyhow, we won't get into that right now. So, but it says that don't just slice off the limb of an animal like that. And so the hunter. Now we can see the hunter. So this is like a barbaric person. He's enjoying the pain and writhing suffering of other creatures. At the same time, let's notice the hunter. The hunter recognizes this Narada Muni, and he immediately has respect. So he has a spark of sincerity. He has a spark of sincerity, and he's so degraded. But so Narada Muni is fanning that spark. He's fanning that spark. And then the hunter, you can see he's barbaric, he's vicious. At the same time, he has this childlike innocence, and because he's saying, what's the problem? This is what I learned from my dad. We can imagine maybe they went on hunting trips, and the dad is laughing. Oh, look, let's torture the animals. Oh, look, the animal. And this is what I learned from my dad. What's the problem? And we can look like that. That's the family he comes from. And then we can imagine he went through some daddy process there with Narada Muni, right? Because the hunter, he respected Narada Muni, but it's like, but he's carrying like, well, this is a legacy I got from my father. This is how we have fun. So like he went through some the legacy from his past, taking inventory. Oh, okay. And then yeah, and then he's like, okay, but if I so Narada Muni instructs him, you just chant Hare Krishna, serve Tulasi Devi, and you trust. And then, yeah, the hundred, well, how will I earn my living? You just trust. And then he comes to chanting Hare Krishna, and then he becomes such a gentle soul, such a gentle soul that he doesn't even want to cause pain to an ant like that. And that's how the story unfolds. It's history. So just an example. So in the traditional Vedic system, the hunter, he's not even in the system. Like he would need to purify himself after lifetimes to come to the point of being a chandala, just like an ordinary dog eater, then come to the level of a sudra, and then but Narada Muni, just spark of sincerity, chant Hare Krishna, worship Tulasi Devi. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Kesavasya Krishna Bhakti Padi Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. So wherever someone's at, see the spiritual spark. So see the spiritual spark. Vijay Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Cheva Spapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. See the spiritual spark in all living entities, meet them where they're at, fan that spark. And the traditional process of the Vedic Vidi, not practical anymore. So we're getting the Panchatrika Vidi from Srila Prabhupada in the line of Bhaktisiddhanta, in the line of Narada Muni. Yeah, Shruti Smriti Puranadi, Pancharatra Vidim Vida, Akantaki Harabhakti Utpataya Evakapite. There are different paths, there are different vidis in the line of Bhakti. Shruti, ancient Vedas, Smriti, Smriti, and the Puranas, and the Panchatriki Vidimvita. Panchatriki coming from Narada Muni. So it's completely bona fide and authorized, and that's our path. Thankfully, because we're not set up to go through the ancient traditional Vedic system, which is a bona fide path, just not practical in this age. And so this is just, yeah, we're not seeing according to the body. And then, so from wherever we're at, we choose bhakti, fan that spark for ourselves and others. And then at the same time, we're completely encouraged and guided to follow sattvic regulative principles to support us, to make that choice easier, So even someone as degraded as the vicious hunter who enjoys the pain of the animals, he chose bhakti. Of course, that's the yes the kripa siddha of his guru Narada Muni, and like that. At the same time, because what often happens is like someone, even we can get into like, oh, I could choose bhakti, but sort of like even sometimes people have excuses for not taking to Krishna consciousness and like that. And at the core, often, if not practically always, is someone feels too undeserving for this too shameful and too undeserving. Like, oh no, I'm such a shameful wretch. I don't deserve this most pure, beautiful, highest blissful path. Now that's not Narada Muni's view, that's not Srila Prabhupada's view, it's not Krishna's view. But sometimes through a shame, holding on to shame, and then that will be the core excuse, though I might not admit it, that will be the the core excuse for not embracing bhakti, like, oh, I'm not pure enough, I'm too shameful. And so, once to the extent we let ourselves go down the slippery slope of demoniac, self-alienating, self-sabotaging activities, then we make it tougher and tougher for ourselves to choose Krishna consciousness, to choose chanting Hare Krishna, because then we get covered and we don't even know we're covered. It becomes layers of covering, layers of illusion. And the whole point of Maya is like to give us like really apparently good reasons to not chant Hare Krishna and not spend some time with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And we become more and more influenced in that way. Okay, I'll read the verses again. Text 8 and 9 of Canto 3, Chapter 8. The great sage Sankhya was the chief amongst the transcendentalists. And when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parashara and Brihaspati both heard him. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Hare Krishna. Thanks for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. I welcome any comments, realizations, inspirations, questions at this time. Anandi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I feel very inspired by your class and what you shared. I like a few things that I'm thinking about is, so Srimad Bhagavatam is free from any cheating religion?
Yes. Dharma Projita, free from all cheating religion.
So is it also free of moralistic teachings?
As far as like mundane morality?
Yes. Like if you do this, you get punished.
Okay, well, thanks for your question.
I could share more what's
Please
going
do.
on in my mind. So what you share today, what I'm understanding is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, anyone can take to devotional service and can take to bhakti, no matter what the externals are.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of, the Christian traditions, the first followers of St. Francis, they were the outcasts, the lepers. And Lord Jesus Christ, he took Mary Magdalene, who was a prostitute, considered lowest in society, and he saw the purity in her heart. So the purity of the heart doesn't seem to depend on the external. It's not automatic.
Correct.
Someone could do kill animals, but have a pure heart, it seems.
Yeah, it's a very extreme example, but it's true.
So Srimad Bhagavatam could be considered as dangerous because it could be understood, well, religious principles are not important, moralistic principles are not important, just go for bhakti.
Go for the pure bhakti. Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear more about this. And also because I'm considering how Srimad Bhagavatam is built from the first canto up to the 10th canto. There's a preparation, and it seems like there's less and less of a moralistic system.
As it goes on.
It's fall apart.
Yeah.
So
Srimad Bhagavatam is not dangerous, but it could be misunderstood, misapplied in a dangerous way, in a spiritual bypass way, and that becomes sahajya. That relates to the current link principle, or current link to the Parampara, Srila Prabhupada. I'm reminded of a quote. I've heard it attributed to St. Augustine, maybe someone. Anyhow, yes, that nothing is so simple that it can't be misunderstood. So yeah, we're talented at misunderstanding even the most simple things. And so um, so that's why Srila Prabhupada cautions about the spiritual bypass, the sahajya. That's why we understand Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Chaitanya Charitamrita through our current link to the Parampara. So Prabhupada's saying, so our current link, Srila Prabhupada, such an important principle. He's saying, like, if you want to progress in self-realization, if you want to progress in Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, here's practical regulative principles for you to follow. And they're like guardrails. Otherwise we might like, oh yeah, let's okay, let's all dance with the gopis. So let's go, find gopis to dance with, like that. And then there are so many rules and regulations given in different places. If one reads Nectar of Devotion, okay, so I'm supposed to offer 10,000 obeisances per day. Okay, is that what I'm supposed to do? Oh, I'm supposed to immediately get on a plane and go to Vrindavan. What am I supposed to do? Okay, so that's where, whether it's Bhagavatam or the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, the literature of the Goswamis, that's why we hear it, we receive it, we apply it, we process it through our current link. Otherwise, let's just say if somehow or other I got a hold of some translation of the Bhagavatam, not through Srila Prabhupada, and I'm not connecting with referencing Srila Prabhupada. Let's say I learned Sanskrit. Let's say I learned Sanskrit with the Bhagavatam. I mean, the Bhagavatam is pure, but yeah, probably wouldn't do me much good. It might even, I'd get so confused because I'd process it through my twisted false ego desires. So that's why we apply it, we understand it through that's why the current link, direct living link principle is so vital.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That's like the guideline to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the guideline. Yes, and then even with that guideline, it's vital that we have our sincerity and intelligence fully engaged, because in the name of Prabhupada said, we could twist things also. But at least for this discussion, yeah, we understand Bhagavatam through Srila Prabhupada. I'm moved by, where we were a few moments ago. Again, let's say somehow in the course of my life, I didn't connect with Prabhupada, but somehow it's Bhagavatam, it's a Vedas. It probably wouldn't do me much good. And I might relate to it in such a insincere, twisted way, it would do me harm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anandini. Any other comments or questions at this time? If not right now, we could take it to the prasadam table. Thank you. Thanks for your association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.